Hello and welcome back to the Oh No 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 podcast. Now, tonight is going to be a first chance for the festive mayhem to be kicking off. We've got a look ahead to our game against St Johnstone this coming weekend. My name is Robbie. I'm your host this evening, and I'm delighted to be joined as ever. I say as ever, they've not been on since all the changes that have came on. Firstly, we've got Blair Hopcroft. How are you doing, Blair?
I'm very well, mate. Yeah, looking forward to chatting all things St Johnstone.
I was expecting you to say looking forward to the Christmas holidays there as well, but I suppose there is also that.
I cannot wait.
Just not long left. Then we've also got Alan Douglas-Munn as well. How are you getting on, Alan?
I'm really good, mate. Yeah, it's funny you talk about festive mayhem. Despite the fact it was still November, I had my work Christmas party last Friday and ended up in the foo bar. It's like, my God, I'm far too old to be going in the foo bar. But you know what? It was a good laugh. It really was a good laugh. I felt like everyone's dad, but, it's what it is.
I think I only ever went to foo bar once, even though I was at uni in Stirling, because I was always in the other one, Dusk.
I think that's shut.
I'm not sure if that's... It wouldn't surprise me. That's a real indicator of where you were at in your early 2000s, well, mid 2010s in Stirling. Anyway, let's talk a bit about the Rovers. Obviously, since the last time that the two of you were on, we've got our new manager, Blair. Just after last week's game, chance to maybe take stock of where we're at. What have your initial impressions been in terms of Dougie Imrie's arrival at the club and how that's came to pass?
Really pleased, actually, I have to say. He was, I'll be the first to admit, he was not a name. He's not a name I would have mentioned. He wasn't at all on my radar. I can't remember who it was. It was maybe Greg on one of the podcasts that talked about it. It was like the more it happened, the more you thought, actually, yeah, that kind of makes sense, actually. Really sensible bit of business for the board, I think. And, long voice notes aside, it's a pretty safe appointment, actually. I was very much kind of, when it was all kind of happening, before the Imrie chat, I was very much kind of, surely McCabe's got to get it. McCabe's got to be the only name in the hat, really. But if we can go and get a manager who has basically consistently outperformed his budget and bring him into a team that is, for certainly the last 18 months, has consistently underperformed its budget. Even league positions aside and stuff, like last season was no great. This season's been kind of up and down. So to have a manager who can kind of get them firing again, it's got to be good. And do you know what? It's everything we spoke about when we were seeing the back of Robson about getting the guy in who's going to, represent the club and be part of the community and all the rest of it. I was at the game on Saturday. I was in the Macmillan Lounge before the game, and I was chatting to the barmaid before he came up. So it was kind of 1 o'clock or whatever. Chatting to the barmaid, and she was saying, "Oh, he's a really nice guy. I met him like earlier or the day before or whatever. He's basically gone around and met everyone, met every single person in the club." What was he, 9-10 months in the job? Barry Robson never set foot in the Macmillan Lounge once. Dougie Imrie was in before the game, promised a win, which was bold, but promised a win and then came back after to say touties. But yeah, no, really, really positive start, and I enjoyed what I saw on the pitch as well, actually, I have to say. Just in terms of, like, for 4 days in to see as much of a difference as what I saw on Saturday has got to be a positive thing. Like, you could see differences in the shape, but you could see differences in the way we were playing out, the centre-backs splitting, the full-backs further on, the full-backs coming into midfield. A real change of kind of style in 4 days and 5 subs. Yeah, count me in. I'm all aboard.
And to turn the question to yourself, Alan, you'll have watched it from the Tannoy box there. What did you make of both the game and as well just what you've seen. Blair sort of saying that Dougie Imrie's ticked a lot of the boxes so far in terms of what we'd hoped from a new manager. Is that the same for you?
No, absolutely. There's little things that, you know, in the grand scheme of things, really mean nothing. But even things like wearing the sponsored club gear for an interview. Now, I'm pretty certain it's part of the deal when somebody sponsors the club and pays that money. By the way, the manager will wear gear with your logo on during his interviews. And Robson just refused to do it. Like, I don't know why. I don't know if he thought he was above it, if he thought he was above the club. I don't know. You're reading kind of things into stuff because nobody ever mentioned it. But, you know, things like that, things like turning up and looking like he was spending a lot of time chatting to people and laughing with people at the calendar signing thing last night. You know, he looked like he was happy to be there. Going around speaking to folk in the lounges, the players just looked happier. All of that side of it, he seems to have got, you know, he seems to get it. And as kind of Blair mentioned, the football side of things, there was a noticeable improvement. Yes, there's the caveat that it was a League One team, but it was a decent League One team who are probably, you know, just about as good as bottom end of the championship, really. You know, it wasn't like we were playing minnows or anything. You know, they're a team on form, so there was definitely positive signs there. And then there's just the whole, you know, the punching above his weight thing that he's been known for in his four years at Morton. I was listening to the one of the Terrace Patreon podcasts today. I know you listened to it as well, Robbie. Where there was a Morton fan talking about, and he was basically saying, you know, Rovers fans should be excited by this. He's a guy that turns struggling players' form around. One of the examples he gave was Robbie Muirhead, who had scored 1 goal in 40 games before, like at Morton, before Dougie Imrie came along, and then scored 26 in his next 80. I mean, that's a ridiculous turnaround in form. Talking about Cammy Blues, how he looked like a guy who was destined for the Lowland League because that's the level he looked like he was capable of playing at, and then he's turned him into a very decent championship player. So if you can get guys like the obvious, well, when even a Morton fan's mentioning it, it's really obvious. If you can get somebody like Jack Hamilton firing, and we can actually get some, you know, return out of him, we all want Jack Hamilton to do well. We've all seen little glimpses in the past that there's a player there somewhere. If we can get him firing and get him confident, and if Dougie Imrie and Andy Millen can do that, then brilliant. You know, there is definitely potential in this squad.
Yeah, it's. I mean, as Blair alluded to initially, it's a throwback to sort of what had been said before in the podcast. But yeah, the more that you do think about it, the more you're kind of like, I can see why we've gone down this route in the direction that we're going in. It's exciting in the sense that just the way that we're moving forward and how rejuvenating it almost feels within the club. It feels like we've been able to sort of take stock of things and we've had a bit of time, and we know it's going to be a difficult month. There's a lot of big games coming up, but they're not entirely out of reach. That's the thing. So it's keen to see how we actually do. I mean, just for yourself, Blair, going in, naturally, to go for your first league game away to top of the league, St Johnstone, that's a challenge surely for Dougie Imrie to be relished. It's the type of thing where you look at him and he's already been up to McDermott Park and got a point more than we've got against him so far. So do you think that's a sort of probably the best sort of environment for him to be thriving in?
Yeah, I think it probably is, in the sense that, and I don't know if I think a lot of Rovers fans probably would disagree with this, but for me it feels a wee bit like a bit of a free hit for him, in the sense that if we go up there, I mean, aside from us getting absolutely hammered, if we go up there and lose 1-0, no one's going, yeah, do you know what, he's not the right man for the job. Like, it's kind of the opposite of Saturday, in a sense. Like, Saturday was one of those games where if he lost it, you know, it's that when you play a team from the league below, you've nothing to gain. You've everything to lose. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you lose that game, it's really bad. If you win that game, well, you should have won that game.
Yeah.
So there's a sense of actually going into this game up at St Johnstone where it's kind of almost roles reversed in that regard. He's clearly had a game plan and gone up there with Morton and got a point, which is more than most have done. So he's clearly going into that team talk and going into the dressing room. He's not going in and making stuff up. He's got an idea, and if he can make it work, he's already proven this season that it can work. So he goes into the game with a little bit less pressure on him, I think, in that regard. Like I say, if we go up there and, I mean, don't get me wrong, if we go up there and lose 5-0 or something, there'll be massive questions being asked. But if you go up there and you go toe-to-toe with them, which, in fairness to Barry Robson, I still feel like every time we've played St Johnstone so far, which I know has only been twice, once in the League Cup, where we were probably lucky-ish, in a sense, no for it to be worse, because they were probably more on top. But that game at Starks, like, we lose a goal from next to nothing, and then they score again while we're chasing the game, and it's that sliding doors moment of, that Vaughan chance just before they scored the first one. Like, we kind of went toe-to-toe with them, and we were there and thereabouts. Like, we weren't getting blown away. So there's absolutely no reason we can't go up there on Saturday and get a result out of it. And I don't think I would have said that 3 weeks ago. Do you know what I mean? I think that's the difference, is that if nothing else, he gives us that little bit of hope that probably wouldn't have been there otherwise, if we hadn't had the change.
Yeah, it's absolutely one where you think about it, and the more that you're looking at it, the more you're like, actually, and considering like what we might be able to do, and just because it can, I know a lot's made in terms of the new manager bounce, and certainly with different managers, we might not have had that at previous points before, but there's something to be said about if you can get a character in that is going to just kind of get everyone unified, and that's really the hope that I've sort of had with sort of seeing Dougie Imrie come in, and I think it's been long overdue because it just wasn't there previously before. Right, let's talk about St Johnstone. Allan, have you been quite surprised that after, I think myself and Duncan, we did a post-match podcast over one of the previous games, we sort of anointed them as champions back in whenever it was that we played them. Do you surprised that once again the Oh No podcast members of it were exceptionally far off the mark, given how the things have panned out since then?
Well, I'm never surprised when our podcast members get things completely wrong, because as we'll happily admit on many occasions, we know absolutely hee-haw about football other than how to go and support it. Yes and no. I mean, we were far from the only, kind of source to be basically crowning them champions early on. Like, everyone was doing it to the extent that I can't remember where I heard it. I think it was somebody on another podcast I was listening to who said they'd looked at the table and they're like, they're not actually that far ahead. They'd heard all the noise and just assumed they were like 20 points ahead of everyone, and looked and went, they're not actually that far ahead. And I think it's just because they looked comfortable early on, even when they weren't always playing well. They were getting results, but I think there's two ways of looking at that. There's one way is it's a sign of champions that when you're not playing well, you still get results. The other way is you can only get away with that for so long. If you didn't turn the form round and actually start performing well, you're going to start dropping points, especially in the championship. And because it's a championship, that's the reason I'm not really surprised they've been hauled back into it, because this is a league where, top of the table can lose at home to bottom of the table. And it's no, while folk who don't follow the league that closely will be like, wow, that's a big shock, it's a coupon buster. Anyone who's been in this league for a while will be like, yes, it's a surprise, but it's not like a massive shock, because that's what this league's like. It's really competitive. Yes, you get, funny results, and teams will kind of pull away eventually, but, on any given day, any team can beat anyone. So, if you're not firing consistently, you will drop points. You're not going to go on a winning 5-6 games unless you play well.
Yeah, it's apparently during one of the more recent sort of bits of BBC coverage, I don't know if it was Jonathan Sutherland or someone else, but they were talking about St Johnstone running away with it. and then Partick Thistle fans were very much up in arms because they're level on points. Like, it's just.
I mean, this is the guy who was talking about hoping to see a goal in the second half at Starks Park while we were beating Dundee 1-0 at half time, and James McFadden had to remind them that there'd been a goal.
Yeah, it's but it's a very valid point. Like, you always look back to the season where when we had Dundee United in the league and they started very, very strongly, and then the performances start becoming a bit more stodgy. You lose that sort of initial, okay, we're new to the league, no one really knows how to handle us. And then sometimes teams figure out how to handle you. And then you've got to figure out multiple ways to basically do that. And to their credit, Falkirk last season, I would say that as well, particularly the second half of the season. Not necessarily always sort of the pretty football that John McGlynn became sort of renowned for, but they were being able to grind out the results. In their last two matches, Blair, defeats against Partick Thistle and then, very surprisingly, Cove Rangers at McDermott Park. What did you make of those results?
Yeah, it did surprise me. I genuinely, I was well on board. They're going to run away with this kind of train. I just didn't feel at the beginning of the season that they had the mistakes in them that they apparently have the same as the rest of us. And actually, I think the analogy, or the parallel that you draw with the season we had Dundee United is really similar, actually, because to say that they're being dragged or they've been reeled in or whatever is kind of true for Partick, but they're still 11 points clear of third. Like, there's still a decent jump there. Do you know what I mean? And that season, we ran Dundee United for a while and just didn't have the stamina, if you like, to kind of see it to the end. And I could still see that happening. The other thing is, St Johnstone have got a big squad. I know they get upset when we talk about this, but they have got a big squad compared to a lot of the teams in the Championship. And would it surprise anybody if they went out and got another 3 or 4 in January to make that push on? No, it really wouldn't. So, losing games, I think it's part and parcel of being in the Championship. Like we've already said, every team can literally lose to pretty much every other team every week. So losing to Partick, no shame in it. We don't do it, but I better reel that one back.
Just the once this season.
Just the once. But yeah, it's a funny one. The Cove Rangers game, I don't know. I think for a team like St Johnstone, and like I said already, when you play a team lower than you in the league, in the leagues rather, in the cup, you've kind of nothing to gain from it, really. Like, you go into the game, and unless you're 100% switched on, you can lose these games out of next to nothing, and it can be blown up into a big thing. But from a St Johnstone point of view, yeah, they'll be frustrated. I don't care what anybody says. They didn't need the money to get out of this league. They've got it already, plenty of it. So they don't need the money. They also don't need the distraction. So actually, like, them not being in the Scottish Cup, probably in the long run for them, won't be the worst thing ever. A little bit surprised by the Cove one, I have to say. What's that, sorry? I
was just saying they've won it enough recently, so...
Well, that's it, aye. In living memory. But the Cove one was a bit of a funny one, but it wasn't a good result. But I think from our point of view, probably the worst time to play them, straight off the back of getting knocked out the Scottish Cup by a team from the league below you. And not just a team from the league below you, a team that's struggling in the league below you. I do worry we're going to get a bit of a reaction on Saturday.
What really struck me about the sort of discussions that I've read from St Johnstone fans online was sort of talking about how at the start of the season they were playing this really progressive sort of flowing football, one-touch stuff, being able to ping the ball about quickly, whereas now their comments have became one-touches became 2 to 3 touches, and it's really sort of like slowing down the play in the final third. A bit of criticism, I think, in terms of some of the players for being a bit more greedy in terms of they're taking their shots, etc. And then at the back a wee bit more slack. Yes, Blair's obviously mentioned the size of squad there, Alan. Now, normally I would struggle to prepare in terms of pre-match podcasts, but fortunately for me, I live in the area that's covered by the Courier, so they provide about 900 articles a week regarding St Johnstone and everything that you could ever want to know about them. Now, both Jamie Gullen and Josh McPake got injured against Cove, so they're going to be doubts going into this one. Sven Svedberg, Sam Stanton, and Morgan Boyce all missed out due to an illness bug that sweeps through. That comment about strength and depth really potentially an opportunity for them to show their worth there.
Yeah, it is. I mean, first of all, I'm just going to go back on a wee point Blair made there about being the worst time to play them. I cast my mind back to another big shock in Scottish Cup when Aberdeen got beat by Darvel, and then went the following week they got pumped 6-0 by Hibs. So I'll take that. I'll take
That's
a 6-0.
true.
In terms of St Johnstone squad, I think the reason they get a bit humpty about it is that in terms of the actual number of players in their squad, it's not that much bigger than everyone else. But I think the difference with them is pretty much everyone in there could drop into the first team and you don't notice a really big drop off. Whereas, our first team squad's maybe only a few less than theirs, but that's including, guys like Logan Rayside and, Kai Montague and Callum Hanna, guys who are not necessarily ready to play regular football at this level. So I think that's, you go through their squad and there's a lot of names you recognise. And, the lower end of the kind of talent pool, if you like, in their squad are guys who have proven themselves at championship level before. So, they'll have guys who can come in and they'll see this as an opportunity to try and kind of get a place and, kind of keep their place. So that, it's not necessarily always a good thing when players are out, albeit, if they're missing some pretty decent players, it has to be a plus point for us. But that could come back and bite me.
Yeah, no, I think Simo Valakari's been quite willing to rotate in terms of the players that he's got. He's quite happy to leave players out if he needs to, if he feels that they're not sort of hitting the levels that they're at. And then ultimately as well, he'll give them a chance to come back in. We've seen that a few times. I think we saw that earlier on with Uche Ekpezu at the start of the season when he wasn't signing a deal. And they sort of had a bit of back and forth in terms of being able to get him to sign the contract. And more recently, I think it's been similar with Sam Stanton as well, where he sort of commented that he wasn't hitting the levels that he wanted at training. I think he was saying that to Courier. And then more recently, he's been able to get back into the team and obviously playing and putting in a few performances for them. So one to keep an eye on as to whether they're utilising the options there and what's going to be coming out on against us. Because, for all that they've got the likes of Josh McPake that can come in and he's clearly been the best player in the league this season so far, you don't know if maybe even if he's having an off day, he gets dropped out for a week or two, but we've got someone trying to rear to go that's going to be coming up to face against us. So one to sort of keep an eye on as to what's happening there. Blair, we sort of spoke about briefly the form earlier on. I know that they had the loss in the Cup at McDermott Park, but outside of that, the previous 5 home games before that, reading a win, 2 draws, and then 2 wins, illustrate really the size of the task that we've got going away to a difficult venue.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's like I said when we're chatting about Dougie Imrie coming in. Like, there's no bookie in the country that's not going to have them as favourites for the game on Saturday, and quite rightly so. They're top of the league and they're there for a reason. But we keep saying it, the Championship's a league where anybody can win. So you've just kind of got to, I don't know, you've got to go up there and you've got to just kind of stick to the game plan, do what you want to do, and kind of roll the dice and see where it lands. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm confident we're going to go up there and win 4-0 on Saturday, because I'm not.
6.
We're a team that doesn't score goals at this point. Do you know what I mean? We've scored 1 in the last 4 games or whatever. So we're not scoring a lot of goals. They don't concede a huge amount of goals, and they score a fair few. So do you know what I mean? It's everything on paper says that they should be relatively comfortable and relatively confident, but I feel like we're a wee bit of an unknown quantity at this point, which is quite nice actually going into this game. Like, as somebody who has watched this team pretty much every week for my entire life, I've got no idea what he's going to do on Saturday. Like, I don't. I'm not a Scooby-Doo. And if I don't have a Scooby-Doo, then I would like to think that they won't have a... They might have a Scooby-Doo, to be fair. They might have an idea. But they're not going to know what's coming. Whereas if you'd looked at us 3-4 weeks ago, you would know what's coming. You would know exactly what's coming. You'd know exactly how we were going to play. And you could set up for it. So maybe that slight uncertainty over, you know, our style of play and our lineup and how we're going to set up and how we're going to play, maybe that's what actually plays into our hands for this game, in that it's a wee bit harder to plan and prepare for a team when they've only played under the current manager one game against a team from the league below. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I've not been to McDermott. I was trying to think back. I think the last time I went to McDermott Park was the game that Paul McManus got arrested. I think that's the last time I was there. So I'm really looking forward to going up. I missed the game in the summer. I was in the airport coming home from a holiday. So, yeah, like, hopefully we've got a relatively decent support. Probably, again, bigger than it would have been if it had still been Robson, or even, dare I say it, if it had still been Paul Hanlon in charge. I think there's a few folk would have thought, do you know what, actually, maybe I will take the wife Christmas shopping on Saturday. But now, you know, Dougie Imrie's first game away from home, first league game up against the top of the table team, first time it's at McDermott for a lot of people, like myself, for a long time. I'm hoping we're going to have a decent support and we can go up there and give it a right good go.
Yeah, I mean, there's Amazon for Christmas shopping, so what are you doing?
Exactly.
It's the only good thing to be coming out of
We
town.
actually took a decent support up there for the League Cup game, actually, more than I expected. I kind of made a relatively late decision to go up to it, and I was genuinely quite surprised that there was a decent crowd up there. I think, like you say, the Dougie Imrie factor can't be underestimated in terms of how many it'll have added on. I mentioned to Robbie actually before we came on air that I've not decided 100% if I'm going yet, because I've got like kids' birthday parties and stuff to deal with. But you know, there's buses. I've got a wife; she can deal with that. And but then the other part of it is I'm kind of keeping an eye on the tickets to see if it's, you know, close to get, you know, if they're running low, so maybe they'll open up behind the goals instead. But I'm not sure. As I said, I think if they did do that, they'd probably just shove us all in there anyway. So.
Yeah, I think that I'd be quite surprised if we ended up behind the goals. I know I said that to you sort of before.
I think it was about 800 or something that bit against, isn't it? Yeah. So I don't think there's any danger.
It's one to keep an eye on, though. It'd be good if we do go up and we do have numbers. Again, I know that the board have said this Hamilton game coming up on the Tuesday got announced, today or yesterday, that was £10 a ticket, I believe, for adults, £5 for juniors. They've openly said, look, we know that money's tight for a lot of people, especially at this time of year, but if you're looking to get along to a game and it's cheap and it's a Tuesday evening, I'm not going to lie to you, we all know it's going to be cold, but we do it for the love of the club and get along. But
it'll be cold in my wee buffet with my heater.
Your wee buffet. Might need to join you.
Melon Club will be open as well, so everybody's welcome.
There's a pitch there. But to go back to what was mentioned before, though, I think that if there's one thing that we can take into this game, it's that if you look at the two previous games that St Johnstone had, there's more than one way to skin a cat in playing against them. Partick Thistle really limited them in terms of their shots and shots on target. I think they only had one shot on target. Going by flash scores now, there might be a St Johnstone fan frantically typing out in the comments to tell me that is very, very wrong. With Cove, I think they dominated, as you would expect, but Cove gradually came back into the game and then managed to catch them just in terms of some of the opportunities. So they are, it's going to be a tough game, but at the same time, undoubtedly, it's one where they're in a poor vein of form. We can go and exploit that, and we can go and take our opportunities and hopefully get away with our result. I think it would be an absolutely massive boost if Dougie Imrie can start off, because he did. I know you referenced the Patreon episode of the Terrace there that Craig Dunham, the Morton fan, was on, just talking about how immediate impact of Dougie Imrie coming in for them was over Gus McPherson and turning around what was a very, very, very poor squad at that point for them to be able to get them going. So yeah, let's turn our attention to Rovers. Allan, Dougie Imrie talking in the press about a lot about, he knows who the Rovers squad are, but he's wanting to get to know the characters. So do you think it's really an opportunity for the players to be able to impose themselves, maybe having that sort of strong reset, being able to go in and sort of say, new boss, new opportunity, being able to move forward here?
No, I think it is, and I think that's a lot of where a new manager bounce comes from. Sometimes things have gone a little bit stale. Players are not enjoying the way the manager plays, so they're thinking, right, this is a new start for me. I've got a chance to come in here, work my ass off, and perform. And if I do well in a couple of games, it doesn't matter what I've done all season. I've done this for the new guy. I can work my way in there, and that that applies to guys like Hamilton, to Paul McMullen, who's obviously come back into the starting lineup last week. They forget the Robson era; it's gone. This is their chance to kind of get a new start under the new gaffer, and whether it's that his style suits them better or just they get on better with him, or whether it is just taking that chance and saying, right, I need to grab this by the scruff of the neck and do what I can to kind of nail my place in this team. So there's definitely a chance there for a few guys to show what they're made of, and no better opportunity to do that than going away from home to the team who are up at the top end of the league. And they're going to be important. If we keep going back to Jack Hamilton, his role, assuming he starts on Saturday, is massively important in terms of not necessarily scoring goals, although that'd be quite nice. But when he gets the ball, he needs to take it in, hold it up, and bring Easton, bring McMullen into play and kind of make spaces for them, and then get your arse in the box to get on the end of it when it comes in. So that role is going to be really, really important on Saturday, because we probably won't get that much possession. We won't get that many chances. So it's important to take the one, or to make something for the ones that we do get.
Well, he's already scored up at McDermott Park this season. I find this type of discussion really interesting, because it's hard to say whether a manager will come in and just say to a player, like, you know what you're good at, and we're just going to focus on the basics, and or whether it is more detail, or whether he's going to go down a different route and how it's explored. And I get that different managers will have different routes that they take with this sort of thing. So much is made in terms of man management and in terms of the game, and Imrie's really appeared to have been strong at that so far.
I think the thing is, when they're new to the job, you need to play to the strengths that they already have. It takes time to change the way a player plays. The most obvious example of that being Finlay Pollock last year. When he first came in and Robson started playing him where he wanted him to play, he was, he didn't look great. He struggled for a while. There was occasional flash, like his debut, for example, he looked decent that day. But then, Robson worked with him, and it's one thing I will give Robson credit for. He turned Finlay Pollock into a really decent forward player, and that just came from working with him on the training pitch, week after week, and kind of, developing certain things. So, if you're going to try and do that with any of our existing squad, it's going to take more than a couple of weeks to do. So just now he's probably looking at kind of what their strengths are and trying to, get the most out of them for that.
So looking back to last week, Blair, we have the win against Alloa, gets us through in the Scottish Cup. You've obviously mentioned before that games in the Scottish Cup against lower league opposition are a difficult one, in the sense that you're on a bit of a hide into nothing. You might not maybe get the credit if you win, but how much do you think that we can take from that game, and Dougie Imrie can take out of it heading into this, which is likely to be in completely different circumstances? Or maybe is it one that we can he might be able to surprise us in terms of the approach that he's taking?
I think he probably gets quite a lot from it, in the sense that, like I said at the beginning, and it was mentioned on the post-match as well, actually, the podcast when you boys were talking through it, that it wasn't just a change of formation. Do you know what I mean? I think I could go in that dressing room and say, right, boys, we're playing 4-2-3-1 today, and you're going to line up here and you're going to line up there. but I don't think we would have seen the same kind of the same difference in the style of play and the way that we kind of conducted ourselves and the way we went about it. I was really impressed. I mean, you could see, like I say, the centre halves splitting all the time, looking to go wide, fullbacks moving on. The amount of times that you saw Stevenson or Doherty popping up in the centre of midfield, and then Scott Brown just kind of slotting in at right back or whatever to cover for them. There was no kind of hassle or worry about it. It seemed a lot more kind of, I think fluid was a word that got used a lot in that post-match. I think he'll have got a lot out of that in the sense that in only 4 days he's been able to get across to them a style. And I mean, I'm presuming that they've bought into it enough. I mean, I'm saying that there's a change. Maybe he wanted more, I don't know. But I would be quite encouraged by the fact that in just 3 or 4 days he's managed to kind of completely change the kind of look of us, as well as the formation, and the players have really kind of bought into it. I think that's the value that he gets from it. I don't think... it's funny, I was speaking to a couple of the guys for the board were in the Macmillan Club on Saturday, and I'm just kind of chatting away and stuff. And I said to one of them, I was like, I can guarantee you that Dougie Imrie turned up for that interview and went, right, here's where your problems are. This is what I would change, and here's how you're going to fix it. And he was like, oh, aye, 100%. That's exactly what he did. And because I've said it before, like he's analysed us twice already this season. He's set up a team to play against us twice this season. We beat them 1-0 away from home, and that game could have went either way. And then we drew one each with them at Starks. And again, genuinely, that game could have went either way. He knows this league inside out. He strikes me as one of these guys who, and it's the juxtaposition. I think it was Duncan that had mentioned it. The juxtaposition with when Barry Robson first turned up, and his first thing he said, I didn't watch a lot of Championship football.
Yeah.
And you're going, like, didn't say that, Barry. Like, you didn't need it. Like, nobody thinks that you've been sitting watching the Friday night games every week, but didn't actually tell them that. But Dougie Imrie has lived and breathed this league for years. Do you know what I mean? So he knows it inside out. So I think he probably didn't learn, like he said in his interviews in the press and stuff, he knows this squad inside out. Yeah, he wants to get to know the characters. He wants to know who's going to feign an injury when they're just no fancying it, who's going to run through a brick wall for him. All the usual kind of stuff that a manager wants to know. He knows fine well who can play what position and where their strengths are. He knows that.
Yeah.
So I think the fact he's put that in place, seen the changes that he's put in place coming off, and actually players buying into it, he's got to be buzzing, like watching this unfold in front of him, and knowing that every single one of them, actually not every single one of them, but a vast majority of that squad are playing for their jobs. Do you know what I mean? It's not just playing for a place in this team. There's a fair few of them are out of contract at the end of this season. Like they're playing for their next contract kind of thing. And a new manager who, for my money, looks like he wants to be here for a while. Like he's not the kind of guy that's, you know, that thing with Barry Robson, he always felt like he felt we were a stepping stone. Like I always got that impression from an interview sort of thing, that we were lucky to have him rather than he was lucky to have us. I didn't feel like that way with Dougie Imrie. I feel like he's going to be here for a while and he's going to try and build something. If you want to be part of that, get on board.
Yeah, I think that with Imrie, I feel he's a manager that's kind of touched on it before about previous podcasts that we did after that Alloa game, and sort of spoke about how it's kind of like he's initially it's one where he's probably thought like, nah, I'm quite comfortable here at Morton. He was speaking before in the autumn about how he would sign a new deal if the board were putting it in front of him. They didn't come forth, and subsequently he's ended up here. But the longer it's gone on, and the more he's probably had time to think about it, and I know, like, without being disparaging to Morton squad, even the Morton fans say it. Like, you look at our squad, their squad, and they'll claim that we're big spending. But obviously, come on, calm it down, lads. But it's one where there is a difference there. There's reasons for it as well. But he's got the core of a good squad there that's lasted over a good few managers when you think about it. Like, quite a few of those lads have been signed by Ian Murray, a few that go back to John McGlynn's spell, a few additions, the one addition really under Neil Collins, and then a few under Barry Robson. He's got the core of a squad there that he's not doing a complete rebuild job, and that's really comes into what you were saying, Blair. It's kind of like he's came in, he's mentioned about where he knows the issues are. He knows the strengths of certain players as well. He's sort of saying about Scott Brown, and you can probably tie that back to Cammy Blues if you're looking at a player in that Morton squad, saying, you're actually really good at doing this job in terms of what you need to do. We just need to get back focusing on doing it. Who knows what the conversations have been like, but certainly as a fan, it feels quite comforting to feel like it's kind of almost like you've got a car and you've got your driver there, and you're like, we didn't have a decent driver before. This guy's really knows what he's doing. We know where we're going now. So
there must have been an element of that. You know, like we played Morton not that long ago, and Dougie Imrie must have been sitting there going, "What's he doing playing Scott Brown there? What's he doing playing him there? What's he doing playing like that? You've not got the players to play that kind of tactics. What are you doing? This is brilliant." So straight away, like you say, he's come in and went, well, I know how to fix that. Let's put Scott Brown back in his rightful position. And, look, Scott Brown had his best performance of the season. Who knew that, you know, playing him where he wants to play is... I get, they're professionals. Scott Brown will... If Scott Brown was to turn up on Saturday and do a game and say, right, Bruni, you're in goals today, he would put on the gloves and he would do it. Yeah. And he would work his ass off. But, you know, if you want to get the best out of your squad, play the players in the position that they're used to playing in and that they've performed well in for years. And simple little things like that, I think you've already seen a difference from it. You know, looking at it and going, who's a better number 10, Scott Brown or Dylan Easton? Who knew who'd be Dylan Easton? Like, you know, just doing the simple things actually gives me that. Yes, you want your manager to know a hell of a lot more than the guys in the stand, and of course Robson did. But it just gives you a little bit of comfort to see that all the things that have been so blatantly obvious to us all season that we've been thinking, what is Robson doing? Imrie's actually come in and thought the same and just went, I know how to fix that. Also, just to clarify, yes, it does seem weird just calling him Imrie. You're right, Duncan. Dougie Imrie every time.
It's definitely Dougie Imrie.
It's definitely Dougie Imrie. Just... looking ahead, I think that there's so much to be positive about with where we're at. It's been a difficult sort of first half to the season, but just to have that knowledge coming into it, going forwards, and especially like you think it's probably the right time, right before January, to have him and John Potter and the recruitment team to sort of sit down and say, this is what we need to focus on. This is where we need to go with options, and his track record of being able to improve players. Alan's touched on it before. I think it's a really big factor, but also as well to see the sort of flexibility within the team as to where players like Josh Mullen, for example, played on the left wing last week and did so much work in terms of trying to help the team out and being able to get crosses in. How it goes forward against St Johnstone, keen to see. So, yeah, definitely one to keep an eye on. Are there any changes for you, Blair, that you would want to see coming in for Saturday? Or are you just quite happy to leave it in the capable hands of Dougie Imrie to...
very much. But I think I would probably stick with pretty much the same 11. I mean, it's interesting when we talk about... I mean, Alan quite rightly brings up the point of like Scott Brown just been playing out of position for so long. But I kind of felt like when Hanlon was taking charge, that kind of change was made as well. Like the last kind of 4 games or so, it feels a lot more like square pegs and square holes, and we don't have a huge amount of options. I think that's fair to say. Like there's maybe 1 or 2 changes he can make, but there's not. It's not like we can make 4 or 5 changes and still put out our strongest 11 kind of thing. So I don't really see any changes. It'll be interesting to see whether he sticks with McMullen and Mullen as the two wingers. I think Mullen, for me, is the obvious one for me to keep in. I think he offers you quite a lot in terms of defensive work and just general kind of hard work and effort and endeavour. Mullen, much the same, actually, to be fair. I think he chipped in relatively well a couple of times when he came on Saturday. When he started on Saturday, sorry. A couple of times he was kind of back and chipping in. I'd quite like to see us get a bit more of a settled kind of 11. So yeah, I can't think of anything off the top of my head that I would really change from Saturday, to be fair. I think it was pretty much our strongest team, or as certainly what's fit.
We've gone from Barry Robson does they change it, which later turned out to be a bit of a myth, into Dougie Imrie, please don't change it. So and Allan, for you, have you got any preferences that what you would want to see, or again are you quite comfortable sticking with where we were at?
No, I wouldn't be looking for any changes in the starting lineup. You might have a few, guys coming back who are, maybe reaching fitness that have been out injured, but great. That means we might be able to fill the bench up a wee bit, and it gives you more options, for later in the game. Even if they're not, we've got options there to change. Dougie Imrie's shown that he's going to play players in positions that we maybe don't expect them to. Like, I certainly didn't expect Ewan Wilson to come on at left wing last week. I don't think anyone did. I'm not sure if Ewan Wilson did, to be honest. Even when he came on, I was expecting, he's going to push Stevenson up to left wing and Wilson will slow in at left back. Nope, shows what I know. So there are options there. You can move Doherty into midfield later on if need be, if it needs a bit more kind of in there. So no, I would absolutely just go with the same starting 11, largely because there aren't that many options
thing
there
as well. Just that Wilson thing. It's funny because I had a conversation on Saturday with one of my mates, and I was like, I think it was Jamie Carragher that talked about how every fullback is basically just either a failed centre half or a failed winger. But I remember watching an interview. I might have even been his first interview, actually, Wilson, when he first signed. But he talked about having been a winger. It was either that or it was an interview I watched online with him. But I think he'd started his career very much as a kind of a pacey left winger and had kind of reverted backwards. So there's maybe something in there. Another thing I heard on Saturday, I don't know if it's been mentioned on here or not, I don't remember it, but Dougie Imrie coached Jack Hamilton at Livingston.
Aye.
Okay.
So there's a bit of a history there too. Like, do you know what I mean? That he's not coming in as somebody he's never met before and stuff. So it will be really interesting to see what he can get out of some of these players.
Right, so he'll know Burn as well from then. I would have thought he'd have been at Livingston.
Yeah, it will do.
Aye, so convenient. That's happy for us. Keen to see what happens when Sean Byrne actually makes a return. Just having those options in midfield, whether he prefers to bring in Sean Byrne, a bit of steel. Again, I was quite effusive in my praise for Scott Brown last Saturday. So
worth noting as well. Actually, I've said on here in the past I was still unsure about Paul Niso, where other people were kind of singing his praises. I thought he was brilliant last weekend. I thought comfortably his best game. Him and Brown looked decent together. There was a good understanding there of, when one went forward, one kind of stayed back. I don't think at any point they got in each other's way, which we've seen with various, central midfield partnerships this season. So just that's another thing that was really nice to see. Whether that's them just getting to know each other a bit more, or whether there's an Imrie Millen factor in there, I don't know. But it can only be positive.
Feels weird hearing the name Milne and not automatically thinking of Panenka as a redactions.
Yeah, see, I'm old enough to remember Andy Millen playing for us. So
of course we are. Were we ever not allowed to, Blair?
Well, I was going to say, but is he now he who shall not be named, or is he who shall be coming in January? Like, where are we at with the?
Well, he's still a bit Inverness. I don't know if
he's been injured. I think, isn't he?
Yeah, I think he was injured earlier on this season, certainly. I was gutted when we were playing them at Starks and he saw the team sheet and he's not there. I was so disappointed. I was
because I'd have been so tempted to read out number 2. Nobody. Might got bothered for that.
You need a full.
Although it'd be number 4, wouldn't he? I can't cope with that.
You need to go full Napoli announcer, I think, when he returns back to Starks Park, giving him the due credit that he deserves. Let's crack on with a game of Should McStair Should Argo to round us off for the evening. So I've got 6 clues about a former or present Rover. I'll start with clue number 1. I was born on the 4th of February, 1978.
Oh, Jesus. Right, now I count. That makes him 6 years older than me.
So he's 47.
47. So, 47. He's been retired 15 years then, probably.
So, started playing late 90s through to early 2010s, probably.
Yeah.
Oh.
George O'Boyle.
George O'Boyle.
Yeah, I'm thinking he's older. I'm thinking he's older than that.
He's got to be early 50s, isn't he?
I think it makes him 2 years older than me. So I'm thinking about when he played for us, he would have been about my age. So I remember when George O'Boyle signed for us, thinking he was a good bit older than me. That could just be that whole thing that you always think everyone's older than you. Also.
Yeah, I think I'll probably get 10 years out there, I think.
Any opening bid, Alan?
Paul Tosh. No idea.
Paul Tosh. Clue number 2. I was given my professional debut in 1996, so you were on the right track there, Alan.
There we go.
By Stephen McAnespie's dad.
Stephen McAnespie's dad?
Yes.
I have
Mr. McAnespie? I've no idea. I didn't know Stephen McAnespie's dad was involved in football.
According to Wikipedia.
According to Wikipedia.
Yeah, I've got no reason to change my opinion because I couldn't even begin.
I do, given the fact I'm probably about 10 years out, but when did you said he make his debut?
1996.
1996.
So I made him about 18.
Yeah. So he's coming to us later than that.
Because I doubt Stephen McAnespie's dad would have been in charge of Rovers and we didn't know about it.
No.
You did say professional debut, didn't you?
Yeah.
So it was not like a...
See, I'm convinced there's a St Johnstone link because it's Robbie. So, Gregory Taddy.
Gregory Taddy. Okay. Close.
Did he not only play in Scotland? I think he did.
I played for 6 SPFL sides.
Mm-hmm.
So just to recap the clues, I was born 4th of February 1978, was given my professional debut in 1996 under Stephen McAnespie's dad, and I have played for 6 SPFL sides. At the time it was SFL sides.
I'm sticking with Paul Tosh.
I'm not sure Taddy would have started playing that early. That's 12 years before we won the league. I'll stick with Taddy. I've got nothing else to... How many SPFL sides did you say?
6.
6.
Yep.
So Rovers, St Johnstone, Inverness, Stranraer.
Stint at Forfar.
Forfar. Thanks for the help. That's still only 5.
Clyde.
I don't think he'd have played that early though.
Well, clue number 4. I played 138 games for Rovers, scoring 18 goals.
138 games and 18 goals. It's no Taddy. He had more than 18 goals.
Again, to add my favourite caveat, according to Wikipedia.
That sounds like a defender to me. 18 goals.
And how many?
So 138 games, you're looking at 4 seasons.
Goal every 6 and a bit.
5 maybe with injury.
A goal every 6 and a bit games. That's quite decent for a defender, that.
Yeah, maybe midfield.
With our record, that'd be a decent record for a striker.
I was going to say, that's a penalty box striker, aye.
So just to recap all the clues so far, I was born on the 4th of February 1978, given my professional debut in 1996 by Stephen McAnesty's dad. I played for 6 SFL sides, and for Rovers, I played 138 games, scoring 18 goals in the process, all of which is according to Wikipedia.
Isn't the weird thing where Jimmy Thompson's actually Stephen McAnesty's dad, is there?
That'd be funny. That's it. That's the thing is, to a certain, like, if you know who Stevie McAnesty's dad is, that's probably a really good clue. Like, do you know what I mean? Because he does strike me, he'll have been at 2 or 3 clubs. Like, he wouldn't have been everywhere, kind of thing.
I suspect John Greer will be one that will naturally know it, and then probably I can see Graham chipping into our group chat at this point. Like, I knew about that.
There's a good chance that John Greer's Stevie McAnesty's dad, to be fair.
I did enjoy. Now, of course, diverting back into the Rovers.
With that blonde hair.
Did enjoy what was it, the Fife Free Press today? The comment underneath with Willie McGregor. Obviously, Willie McGregor's left the board, and it's just like, this wee guy next to me, couldn't get rid of him.
I don't think Paul Tosh played
I always struggle with these unless I know when they played
but...
for us. If I can't see them in a strip, I find this so hard. 96. That's the thing. Like, they could have played for us under so many managers. Like, they could be an Elker. They could be, no, mind you, not that many appearances. But they could be DL, Heatherstone, McGlynn,
John McVeigh.
McGlynn 1, McGlynn 2.
Clue 5.
Yeah, I'll stick with Paul Tosh now. So.
My era was predominantly John McGlynn Mark 1, but I was not signed by him.
Ooh. Now we're talking. So that would make him DL. Or Levine, I suppose.
Or Levine. We're not bringing Avril Levine onto this podcast after the chat on Sunday. After the chat on Sunday. That's getting saved for another time.
Yeah. I saw the voice notes, by the way.
Goals might not be right.
Maybe the St Johnstone's a red herring.
I don't know about goals, but maybe too many goals. But Alan Walker.
Alan Walker?
I'm thinking Mark Campbell. Because Mark Campbell was DL. I think Walker was McGlynn because he's ex-Hearts.
Right.
All the ex-Hearts boys were all McGlynn. Sloan and Walker and Simmons and all they boys.
To be
They
fair,
were all...
I think Alan Walker was Livy.
Yeah, but he was ex-Hearts though.
Was he?
He came through at Hearts, yeah.
Well, I mean, it's all irrelevant because you got it right. Because my clue number
Sure he
6
did.
was career high points saw me win the second division title as captain in 2009 and scored
Oh, it's
goal
Mark Campbell.
in a New Year derby. So yeah, you're absolutely right. I went down that route. Mark Campbell bringing in the ex
very good.
link
I didn't
signed
know
by
he scored that
Gordon
many
Dale.
goals for us, to be honest.
Oh, was he at St Johnstone?
Yeah, that's who we got him from on loan initially.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So yeah, it's Alex McInespy, Sani McInespy, as he was known, as according to Wikipedia, Stephen McInespy's dad, and he was at Stranraer as manager from 1987 through to 1996, and that is where Mark
Oh, very
Campbell
good.
started his career.
Oh,
He had a brief loan spell at Maybole, I think it was. Probably pronouncing that wrong, but then went on to sign for Ayr under Gordon Dale, and then he was on at Falkirk, St Johnstone, on to us, Queen of the South. Might be missing a team in there as well. But yeah, Mark Campbell. I thought that we'd had him as a should McStair, should Dargo, so I was doing a wee panic before having to check the Tex Rover official list on the way through. But no, he's not been used yet.
Quite a timely
big
one as well,
handsome
given that we've just been drawn away to Aberdeen in the cup. Given that obviously he missed the replay because he'd been in a car accident, and we were all thinking, "Oh crap!"
Yeah, that was horrific incident.
I should have heard about it on the radio actually on my way up to Pittodrie or something. And I was just like, "Oh no!"
Yeah, just
I'll never forget him coming onto the pitch at Dens.
Brilliant,
Oh, my
absolutely
word.
fantastic.
What a noise.
What you needed at that moment, wasn't it? It was like, because I think from 2 o'clock, the stand was pretty much felt like
rammed.
it was full.
It was rammed.
Yeah, even
all
at
wearing
that early.
red as well. It was what a day that was, man.
Just one of the best sort of like away days that you could get going.
With that iconic image of Laurie Ellis like that in front of the stand after scoring.
Such a good photo. Fair play because it's Davy Young who does the photography for a lot of the Dundee games that took it. I just remember the end of that game just thinking, we're finally going to play at Hampden for a proper game.
Yeah.
Like, not like
Totally.
one of these league games against Queen's Park.
Me and all my mates were all front row in that photo. If you look right in front of Laurie Ellis, it's me going, come here.
I had it in my head that one of us were in that photo. I couldn't mind who it was.
Yeah, it's me.
The one,
like my wife's with me, the whole lot of us, we went up on a bus for O'Connell's. It was class.
The one thing that was the disappointment out of that day was Graham Weir not getting his goal.
Graham Weir.
Because it would have been great to see him get his goal because he'd not scored to that point in the season. He didn't score, unfortunately, that season. But
I was going to say he never scored for us again, did he?
No, he didn't. But again, that reference of that Dundee game after the Eddie Malone in a previous shoot.
That's right.
I was going to
say, I knew we talked about that recently.
Aye, we did. But let's be honest, we'll happily talk about games like that. Oh, we need to. Right, anyway.
That was a really hard Mark Campbell game. Like that. There's so many things you could have dropped in there that would have made that easier. I mean, I was stabbing in the dark with Mark Campbell. I didn't even know he played for St Johnstone.
Just before you wrap up, Robbie, I was just going to say, no idea if he listens to this podcast or not, but congratulations to Ali Graham, big Super Ali, who's just become a granddad.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, congratulations to him.
Another big handsome bugger.
Aye, well, there's a good few of those from Rovers, aren't there?
Yeah,
there is,
yeah. Right, anyway, thank you for taking the time to listen. We'll be back with our post-match, of course, probably on Sunday evening, I would expect for that. But hopefully we can come away from Dougie Imrie's first league game. Another win would be fantastic. Get the enthusiasm levels ramped up even more. But we will be back, of course, to cover that in full. Thank you for taking the time to listen, and bye for now.